What we're going to have a look at today is sharpening wood chisels with a honing stone. So the honing stone I've got to use is a 1000 grit water stone, and really all that means is that it's lubricated with water. So I'm going to take some water out of the storage tub and make sure I've got lots of water on there to flow away the little metal bits that will be cut as we get going. So the first step is to hone the bevel that we've got established, and what I'm going to do now is set that on the stone. And one of the things I like to use, if you've got enough water on here, when you get that bevel up at the correct angle, it sends a little wave out ahead of it, and that tells you you're right near the angle you want to be at. So I find it there and make sure it's nice and flat on the stone, and then give it about 10 laps around the stone. You can go in a figure 8 or in a big oval. Somewhere about 10 or a dozen laps is good. And that has now established a couple of really nice gray cuts from our 1000 grit stone across the bevel. So now we take it and put it flat side down, the back of the chisel down, and just give that the same amount. Now this one's way easier because when you do the flat back, you just have to hold it down nice and tight to the stone and give it, again, another 10 figure 8s or ovals, whatever you like. I'm just going to set that one down for a second, do a tiny chisel at this, with the same grit stone. You can see some of the gray stuff that's coming off of the cut metal and getting on the face of our stone here. So just when you have a little chisel like this, it sometimes wants to dig into the stone a little bit. So one thing you have to watch is that as you're doing your figure 8 pattern, I'm putting lots of pressure on the back stroke, and as I go around and push it ahead, I lighten up my fingers, and then a heavier pressure, something like that, and then that makes sure that the stone does not dig into, or the chisel doesn't dig into the stone. And then when we go to flatten the back of it, this one's got a big nick in it, so I'm hearing that a bit. There, now that that's flat there, the nick's gone, we've got that doing a nice pattern on the back. Okay, that's the 1000 grit, but that doesn't take it to the final sharpness. We're going to change the 1000 grit now for a much finer stone. This one is actually 6000 grit, and it will cut the steel on the chisel edge so finely that it'll actually shine with a mirror finish. It polishes it with such tiny scratches. So you want to make sure your stones are really secure on the bench so they're not moving around. And that's why I was just clamping this board in place. So now what we're going to do is go back and do the same thing we did before and find that angle again. There, it's really nice and easy to see that little wave coming out in front of it on this one. And we'll go from that and then do again another 10, 12 rotations around. And then I'm going to go and again put it on the back. And just to make sure the stone wears evenly, I'll maybe use a little bit different pattern. Okay, and that'll have taken the polish on the front side, turned it around, put the polish on the back side, but there's one last little thing I'm going to do, and that's I'm going to put a little micro bevel, it's called. And the way you do that is you find that angle. Let me just get some nice clean water on here. Find that angle, there's the little wave coming out, and I'm going to raise it just a bit. We're talking about a couple of degrees, nowhere near 10 or 15 degrees, just 2 or 3, and then a quick 5, and then we'll just do one little bit more on the back there, and I'll do the same with my little narrow guy. So find that angle, and again this narrow one, maybe I'll do some just on the back a bit, and again get the wave there. You can see how dirty this stuff is coming off. That's all steel particles from the coming off of these chisels. Find that micro bevel just a few degrees up, and we go there. And then the last thing we can do for testing them is if you take a chisel, the thing you do not want to do is put your finger on the end of it, go like that, because if you've done a good job, it should cut you. The safer way to do it is take the back of your thumbnail and just run along at a very low angle. And any chisel, if it's even fairly dull, if you go up at a high angle like that, will not skid out your thumbnail. But if you put it at a really low angle and run along, if you've done a good job sharpening, it should cut your thumbnail and not skid along. That should show us that we're nice and sharp. Just try the little guy here too. Yeah, that's not skidding at all. That just wants to cut into my nail. There we are.